I've been doing this for a lot of years, being a lawyer. If there's one thing I regret, it was writing the death penalty initiative in 1977, which was on the 78 ballot. My background. I began my career in the best district attorney's office in the United States, with due respect to the Los Angeles DA's office, which has been a really fine office as well. I noticed that Yolo County has never been on the top 1,000, in the top 1,000, maybe the top 20,000. And I'll address that in a few minutes because I was trained and prosecuted cases in Manhattan, a tough place to try cases from beginning in 1969. My boss, the late Frank Hogan, his mantra was, you don't play politics with people's lives. And it was the integrity that flowed through that office that caused me to want to be in that office, and I was fortunate enough to be accepted. And I carried my career to California in 1973. By the time I left the Manhattan DA's office, I tried many felony trials. I'd worked on homicide cases. I'd done most of it, and I did a lot of writing. When I came to California, I went to the United States Attorney's Office. I essentially ran the criminal division for 4.5 years. Tried a lot of cases in the U.S. Attorney's Office, which was really like an ivory tower compared to the Manhattan DA's office. I continued my writing, developing my writing skills, handling many cases in the Ninth Circuit, trying some important cases. And in 1977, I was called by Senator John Briggs, who was a state senator who wanted to know if Lynette Fromme, had she been successful in assassinating President Ford, whether she would have been subject to the death penalty. I told them no, because the United States Supreme Court had essentially abolished the federal death penalty and had not reinstated it, or Congress had not reinstated it by appropriate legislation. And we then talked about capital punishment, and I had always believed that capital punishment was a just punishment for intentional homicides. And so one thing led to another, and I was engaged when I left the U.S. Attorney's Office to write the death penalty initiative. We had a very large committee of consultants, and you're looking at the only consultant, myself. I did all of the legal research, and I did it well. I read all of the U.S. Supreme Court jurisprudence because my charge was to make it conform to federal law, and I did that. I wrote a very detailed, well-written statutory scheme. The problem is it doesn't work for a multitude of reasons that I never considered. One, I assumed that prosecutors would fulfill their obligation by ethically prosecuting capital cases. It wasn't always the case. I assumed because on paper it's fair. It provides for mitigation, it provides for aggravation, and it provides a scheme for a jury to make the right decision based on the facts they hear in court. Doesn't work. Doesn't work for African Americans, it doesn't work for Latinos, it essentially doesn't work for poor people. And that's its great flaw. So when someone was talking about the number of people on death row, I've often thought that I should be hired by the Marriott Corporation or the Hilton Corporation because I know how to fill a hotel. I'm making light because we have almost 750 people on death row in a system that doesn't function. And the scary part about the statutory scheme I wrote, enacted by initiative, is it's flawed. And the flaws cannot be changed. And I believe that we executed at least one innocent person in 1998. I believe that there are people on death row, unlike the governor. I believe there are people on death row that are factually innocent. And that's pretty heady. There have been some negative comments about prosecutors. I spent 8.5 years as a prosecutor. I have the highest regard for prosecutors. I've tried cases against some of the best prosecutors of lawyers. Some of the best lawyers I've ever met have been prosecutors. There have been some prosecutors that lacked ethics and integrity, and I could count that on one hand. You know, in every case any lawyer tries, there are jury instructions that are given to the jury. And the very first instruction to the jurors is keep an open mind. I've always kept an open mind because I realize I'm a human being and I can make a mistake. I didn't make a mistake in the language. I didn't make a mistake in the legal document I prepared. The mistake was made in not thinking about the consequences of the assumptions I made. And that is a mistake I'm going to live with. So if we put let's put aside the execution of an innocent person. Because in a debate, I had an opponent tell me that if it takes executing an innocent person, then so be it, as long as you execute the guilty. And that was Mark Klass, who was essentially the victim of a horrible crime, his daughter's murder. But if we put aside the execution of an innocent person and look at the cost, $4 billion to execute 13 people, when we need more police officers on the street, we need more technicians conducting forensic examinations so that people could be brought to justice who have committed crimes. I was offended by
David.
Mr. Isaac's editorial. I was offended by his basically politicizing the death penalty, which has been politicized by many. But it was not intended to be factual. It was intended to, I think, promote his own political aspirations, because that's the only thing that makes sense. And Judge Alicorn of the Ninth Circuit is not some bleeding heart left-wing judge, and I'm not a bleeding heart left-wing lawyer. I mean, I'm a Republican. I mean, I'm not real pleased with my candidate for president this year. And I've made mistakes before because I voted for Obama. So I can make mistakes, as I've well admitted. But to end this on Mr. Isaac's comment and comments in that editorial, I think we all feel for victims. We all feel for victims' families. But when you keep people on death row for years and years and years, what does that do to the family of victims? as they wait to see finality, it doesn't come about. If we had life without parole as the ultimate punishment for murder with a single special circumstance, that puts an end, assuming it goes through the appellate process, it puts an end to their personal suffering and it brings finality. So I made a mistake. The voters in this state can change what I made a mistake about, and that is enacting the Safe California Act, Prop 34. It will bring justice to California. It will bring finality to victims, and it will help us bring to justice using monies that would normally go right down this major sewer to the people of the state of California. And most importantly, when we start talking about money, who best to deprive of money than all of these criminal defense lawyers and all of these criminal appellate lawyers who have made billions of dollars off of what I wrote. So that's another good reason. And not the great lawyers in the State Public Defender's Office who do great work. And while I disagree with some of the political statements made here today, there is incredible admiration for lawyers that go in the trenches, that fight the battle, even in cases where the evidence is pretty much overwhelming. They are not afraid to take that battle on, and more importantly, they're not afraid to take on someone of little stature who misuses his office to gain a conviction for political reasons. And so thank you very much for the invitation, David. And thank you.